Have you ever stared at a struggling, yellowing tomato seedling and thought, maybe I just need that one secret ingredient? What if I told you that the magic cure you found on the internet might be exactly what is killing your plants? Welcome to our channel. Today we are talking about tomato seedlings and the viral trend of using kitchen spices and baking goods to fertilize them. I'm going to promise you something right now. By the end of this video, you will look at your kitchen pantry in a completely different way. You might have seen the videos, the ones that claim just one single spoon of baking soda, yeast, or turmeric will guarantee that your tomatoes never get sick. It sounds incredible, right? It goes against everything professional growers do, yet millions of people believe it. So, are the big fertilizer companies lying to us, or is the internet tricking you into destroying your own garden? Let us find out the ugly truth. Tell me in the comments right now, have you ever poured baking soda or yeast on your plants? To understand why these hacks are so popular, we have to look back at the history of home gardening. For generations, people have looked for cheap, accessible ways to protect their crops. Long before commercial garden centers existed, our grandparents used whatever they had on hand. Wood ash, crushed eggshells, and animal manure were standard. But in the modern internet era, this desire for simple, homemade solutions has mutated into something completely different. We now have social media algorithms that reward shocking, immediate results. The idea of a miracle cure in just one spoon is the ultimate viral hook. When you are growing vegetable seedlings, specifically tomatoes, you are in a high-stress situation. Tomatoes are notoriously vulnerable to fungal diseases, root rot, and nutrient deficiencies. A young seedling is incredibly fragile. Gardeners become desperate to protect their little green babies. When desperation meets viral internet advice, disaster usually follows. We are going to look at 3 of the most famous offenders today: baking soda, yeast, and turmeric. We will break down exactly what they do, and more importantly, what they destroy. Let us start by looking at why kitchen hacks are so incredibly popular in the first place. You are scrolling through your phone, and suddenly a video pops up. It promises that just one single spoon of a common household item will turn your tiny, struggling tomato plants into massive, fruit-bearing giants. It sounds like pure magic. And who does not love a good shortcut? Especially when the ingredients are already sitting in your kitchen pantry. We all want the absolute best for our gardens, and the idea of a cheap, chemical-free solution is extremely tempting. It feels like uncovering a secret that the big garden industry does not want you to know. You imagine your neighbors looking over the fence in pure jealousy at your perfect bright green tomato seedlings. But what is really happening beneath the surface of the soil? Are we actually helping our plants, or are we slowly poisoning them with our good intentions? The psychology behind these viral gardening hacks is deeply fascinating. We inherently trust things we can eat. We think, if baking soda is perfectly safe for me to bake a cake with, surely it must be safe for my delicate little plants. This logical leap makes perfect sense to our human brains. However, a plant is not a human. A tiny seedling has a completely different set of biological needs than we do. And treating your garden like a mixing bowl is the very first step toward a complete gardening disaster. Let me paint a picture for you. Now let us talk about the absolute king of internet gardening myths. Baking soda. The claim is everywhere. People say that mixing just one spoon of baking soda into your watering can will completely stop fungal diseases like blight. They tell you it will make your tomatoes immune to sickness forever. The theory sounds somewhat scientific at first glance. Fungi do not like alkaline environments. Baking soda is alkaline. Therefore, baking soda must kill the fungus. Right? Well, this is a massive oversimplification that completely ignores how plant biology actually works. When you dissolve baking soda in water and pour it over your precious vegetable seedlings, you are not just targeting the bad fungus. You are dropping a chemical bomb on the delicate ecosystem of your potting soil. Think of your soil as a bustling, microscopic city. It is filled with beneficial microbes, good bacteria, and helpful fungi that work tirelessly to feed your plant. Baking soda acts like a massive flood of toxic salt in this tiny city. It abruptly spikes the potential hydrogen level of the soil, making it extremely alkaline in a matter of seconds. Tomatoes naturally prefer slightly acidic soil to truly thrive. When you dump baking soda on them, you shock their system completely. The roots suddenly cannot absorb essential nutrients like iron or calcium, even if those nutrients are abundantly present in the dirt. But the damage from baking soda does not stop at just changing the acidity of your soil. We need to talk about what baking soda actually is on a chemical level. It is sodium bicarbonate. And the key word there is sodium. Yes, sodium. The exact same element found in table salt. When you add that one magic spoon to your seedling pots, you are introducing a massive, unnatural dose of salt to a very confined space. Seedling roots are incredibly sensitive. They are as fragile as wet tissue paper. When they encounter high levels of sodium, a process called reverse osmosis happens. Instead of the roots drinking water from the soil, the salt actually pulls water out of the plant roots. The seedling literally begins to die of thirst, even if the soil feels completely wet to your touch. This is the tragic irony of the baking soda myth. You water your plants with this mixture to save them, but you are chemically dehydrating them to death. You will notice the leaves starting to curl inward, developing crispy brown edges. Most gardeners see this crispiness, assume the plant is dry, and water it even more with the same toxic mixture. It becomes a vicious, deadly cycle. I once saw a gardener wipe out an entire tray of 70 beautiful heirloom tomatoes in just 3 days using this exact method. It was heartbreaking. So, how did this baking soda rumor even start if it is so destructive? Like many myths, it contains a tiny grain of truth that has been twisted beyond recognition. In commercial agriculture, there are specific potassium bicarbonate sprays used to manage certain powdery mildews on the leaves of mature plants. Someone, somewhere, confused potassium bicarbonate with sodium bicarbonate, which is common baking soda. They also confused spraying mature leaves with drenching the soil of baby seedlings. This game of broken telephone has resulted in countless dead vegetable gardens. If you truly want to protect your tomato seedlings from fungal issues, you need to focus on environment, not chemistry. Fungal diseases thrive in damp, stagnant air. The real secret is not a spoon of white powder from your kitchen. The secret is setting up a small fan to keep the air moving around your plants. It is watering from the bottom so the leaves stay completely dry. It is making sure your pots have excellent drainage holes. A strong, healthy seedling grown in good conditions has its own natural immune system. When you rely on harsh kitchen chemicals, you weaken that immune system. You strip away the plant's natural defenses, leaving it wide open to the very diseases you were trying to prevent. Let us move on to the second miracle ingredient that is constantly pushed on social media. Yeast. Baker's yeast, to be exact. The promise here is explosive growth. The videos claim that watering your tomato seedlings with a yeast and sugar mixture will make them double in size overnight. It is pitched as the ultimate, natural steroid-free growth booster. The logic seems very appealing. Yeast is alive. It makes bread dough rise and expand rapidly. So obviously it will make your plants rise and expand too. Unfortunately, plants are not made of flour and water. Adding a living, sugar-hungry organism to your potting soil creates a chaotic situation. When you pour an active yeast mixture into the soil, the yeast wakes up. It begins to multiply rapidly because you have given it a warm, moist environment. But yeast needs food to survive. It needs energy. Since there is no flour to eat, what do you think the yeast consumes? It consumes the very nutrients that your tomato seedling desperately needs to grow. It becomes a ruthless competitor in the soil. The yeast acts like an invading army, stealing all the available resources. Your tiny tomato plant, which grows relatively slowly, simply cannot compete with an organism that multiplies by the millions every few hours. The biggest casualty in this yeast invasion is nitrogen. Nitrogen is the most critical nutrient for young seedlings. It is what allows them to grow rich, dark green leaves and strong stems. When the yeast rapidly multiplies in your soil, it locks up all the available nitrogen for its own life cycle. This phenomenon is known as nitrogen tie-up. Suddenly, your tomato seedling is starving. Within just a few days of applying the magic yeast fertilizer, you will notice a drastic change. The lowest leaves on your tomato plant will start turning a pale, sickly yellow. The plant will stop growing completely. It will look stunted and sad. You added a fertilizer to make it grow, but you actually triggered severe malnutrition. Furthermore, when the yeast eventually runs out of food and dies, it begins to rot in the soil. This creates a foul, sour smell and attracts terrible pests like fungus gnats. Those tiny black flies flying around your indoor plants? They absolutely love the decaying organic matter left behind by a failed yeast experiment. So not only have you starved your plant of essential nitrogen, but you have also invited a pest infestation right into your living room. It is a double disaster caused by a simple misunderstanding of biology. There is a very specific visual example of the yeast disaster that I want you to picture. Imagine a beautiful, stocky little tomato seedling, about 3 inches tall. It has 2 sets of perfectly green, true leaves. The gardener pours a cup of warm, frothy yeast water over it, expecting a miracle. 48 hours later, the surface of the soil is covered in a weird, slimy white film. The entire room smells faintly of cheap beer or old bread. The tomato seedling has not grown a single millimeter. Instead, the bright green leaves have faded to a light lime color. The stem looks weak and wobbly. The plant is literally suffocating and starving at the exact same time. The roots cannot breathe through the slime layer, and the yeast has stolen all the food. This is the reality of the yeast hack. It is vital to remember that true fertilizers contain elements in a form that the plant roots can instantly absorb. Yeast provides absolutely zero immediately available nutrition. It is not plant food. It is an entirely separate living organism with its own agenda. Feeding yeast to your plants is like adopting a tiger to protect your pet mouse. The intentions might be good, but the outcome is highly predictable and very tragic. Now we arrive at the third ingredient in our dangerous kitchen trio: turmeric. This bright yellow spice has gained massive popularity as a human superfood. It is praised for its powerful anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties. Because it is so good for people, internet influencers have decided it must be incredible for tomato seedlings too. They recommend sprinkling a spoon of turmeric powder directly onto the soil or mixing it into water to prevent damping off disease. Damping off is a terrible fungal issue that causes healthy seedlings to suddenly collapse and die at the soil line. It is a gardener's worst nightmare. So, sprinkling a little magic yellow powder seems like a great insurance policy. But here is the fundamental error in this thinking. Turmeric is indeed powerfully antibacterial, but remember that microscopic city in our soil, the one filled with beneficial microbes? Turmeric does not know the difference between good bacteria and bad bacteria. It is an indiscriminate killer. When you introduce a heavy dose of turmeric to the delicate seedling soil, you essentially sterilize it. You wipe out the complex web of life that supports healthy root development. Sterilizing your potting soil might sound like a good idea to prevent disease, but it is actually the worst thing you can do. Healthy soil is a living, breathing ecosystem. The beneficial bacteria and fungi act like a tiny army that protects your plant roots from invading pathogens. They also help break down complex organic matter into simple nutrients that the plant can actually eat. When you drop a bomb of turmeric into the pot, you kill off the defending army. For a brief moment, the soil might be free of bad fungus, but nature absolutely hates a vacuum. Because you have wiped out all the good guys, the soil is now completely defenseless. The very next time a harmful mold spore floats through the air and lands on your pot, it will multiply like crazy. There is no beneficial bacteria left to stop it. This is why gardeners who use heavy spices on their soil often report seeing thick, fuzzy grey mold growing on the surface just a few days later. They inadvertently created the perfect blank canvas for disease to take over. You are trading a balanced, natural defense system for a temporary kitchen spice illusion. Let me give you a very clear illustration of what happens when turmeric goes wrong in a seedling tray. A gardener takes a pinch of powdered turmeric and dusts the top of the soil around their newly sprouted tomatoes. The yellow powder forms a slight crust when it gets wet. A few days pass. The turmeric crust actually prevents water from soaking evenly into the soil. Water pools on top or runs straight down the sides of the plastic pot, leaving the center roots completely dry. Worse still, the antibacterial nature of the spice stops the natural decomposition of organic matter in the potting mix. The soil becomes dead dirt. The seedlings, expecting a rich environment full of microbial helpers, find themselves in a sterile wasteland. They fail to thrive. They simply sit there, locked in stasis, unable to access the nutrients locked in the dead soil. And if that yellow crust stays too wet, it becomes a breeding ground for surface molds that feed on the spice itself. You wanted to prevent fungus, but you ended up growing a strange, yellow, fuzzy sweater on top of your potting soil. It is a classic case of trying to outsmart nature and losing badly. So, if these viral hacks are so terrible, why are tomato seedlings so incredibly sensitive to them? To understand this, we have to look at the biology of a baby plant. A seedling is fundamentally different from a fully grown, mature tomato bush out in the garden. When a seed sprouts, it is running entirely on its own internal battery. The seed contains a tiny little package of energy and nutrients designed to push the first leaves up toward the sun. During this early stage, the roots are microscopic. They are barely thicker than a human hair. They are completely unarmored. A mature plant outdoors has thick, woody roots that can withstand periods of drought, heavy rain, or even slightly acidic fertilizer. A baby seedling has none of those defenses. Everything you put into that tiny plastic pot is amplified 100 times. A single spoon of a harsh substance in a small cup of dirt is like dumping a whole truckload of chemicals onto a mature plant. The concentration is simply too high. This is the core problem with the internet advice. It treats a fragile newborn exactly the same as a tough, fully grown adult. This intense sensitivity leads us directly to the concept of root burn. This is the ultimate cause of death for most overloved seedlings. Root burn happens when the concentration of salts, minerals, or active fertilizers in the soil is higher than the plant can handle. We talked about how baking soda causes this, but any concentrated kitchen hack can trigger it. When root burn occurs, the tiny microscopic root hairs, which are responsible for drinking water, are literally scorched off. Without these hairs, the plant cannot drink. The physical symptoms always look exactly like a plant that desperately needs water. The leaves droop, they lose their shine, and the stems become soft. This triggers the gardener's panic reflex. What do we do when a plant looks thirsty? We water it. And often, we water it with more of the magic kitchen solution, thinking we just did not use enough the first time. We are throwing gasoline on a fire. The soil gets wetter and wetter, the burned roots rot away completely, and the plant collapses. This is why you must treat your seedling soil as a sacred, protected zone. Nothing goes in there unless it is absolutely gentle and specifically made for baby plants. You might be wondering, if these hacks are guaranteed to cause root burn and starvation, why are there thousands of comments from people swearing that they work perfectly? This brings us to a fascinating psychological trap in gardening. The placebo effect. Let us imagine a gardener who plants their tomatoes. They use good quality soil, they put them under a fantastic grow light, and they water them properly. Just for fun, they also add a spoonful of yeast to the water one day. The tomatoes grow beautifully. They are huge and green. The gardener immediately credits the yeast for this amazing success. They rush to the internet to tell everyone about the miracle. But the truth is, the tomatoes grew beautifully despite the yeast, not because of it. The good soil, the bright light, and the proper watering did all the actual work. The plant was strong enough to survive the slight stress caused by the yeast hack. This is called confusing correlation with causation. Just because two things happened at the same time does not mean one caused the other. People rarely post videos about their spectacular gardening failures. They only post the successes, falsely attributing them to whatever secret trick they tried that week. So, what do tomato seedlings actually need if they do not need baking soda, yeast, or spices? The answer is beautifully boring. They need three fundamental things: light, water, and proper temperature. That is it. No magic spoons required. Let us start with light. Tomatoes are sun-loving creatures. When they are grown indoors, a sunny window is almost never enough. They will stretch out, becoming tall, thin, and weak as they reach for the glass. This is called getting leggy. What they desperately need is a strong, full-spectrum LED grow light, positioned just a couple of inches above their top leaves. 14 to 16 hours of bright light a day is the true secret to thick, stocky, healthy stems. Secondly, water. Seedlings like to be slightly moist, but never soaking wet. The soil should feel like a sponge that has been thoroughly wrung out. Watering from the bottom tray and letting the soil pull moisture up is vastly superior to dumping water on top. Finally, temperature. Tomatoes like it warm. Room temperature, around 70 degrees, is perfect. If you provide these three boring things consistently, your plants will be virtually unstoppable. But what about food? When do we actually start fertilizing these little green monsters? This is where patience becomes your greatest gardening tool. Remember that internal battery inside the seed we talked about? That battery contains enough perfectly balanced nutrition to sustain the seedling for several weeks. When the plant first pops out of the dirt, it has two smooth little leaves called cotyledons. These are not true leaves. They are part of the seed battery. While the plant only has these smooth leaves, it requires absolutely zero fertilizer. None. Zero. Adding anything to the soil at this stage is asking for root burn. You must wait until the plant grows its first set of true leaves. These are the leaves that actually look like tiny tomato leaves, with jagged edges and a distinct smell. Even then, the plant is still very small. It only needs a microscopic amount of help. The absolute biggest mistake you can make at this stage is following the instructions on a bottle of strong, synthetic fertilizer. You must ignore the hype and focus strictly on gentle, organic support. When those true leaves finally appear, and the plant is about 4 weeks old, you can introduce a real, safe fertilizer. But we are going to do it the smart way. We are going to use the concept of feeding weekly. Instead of one massive dose of strong chemicals, we provide a tiny, almost unnoticeable whisper of nutrition every time we water. The best option is a high-quality organic liquid fertilizer, like fish emulsion or liquid kelp. But here is the critical secret. Whatever the bottle says is the recommended dose, you must cut it down drastically. Mix it at 1/4 or even 1/8 of the recommended strength. If the bottle says 1 cap full per gallon, you use just a few drops. This extremely diluted mixture is perfect for delicate seedling roots. It provides a steady, gentle stream of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium without any risk of salt buildup or root burn. It mimics the gentle, slow release of nutrients found in perfectly composted natural soil. This is the professional method. It is not flashy, it will not go viral on social media, but it creates massive, incredibly healthy root systems. If you want a truly organic, foolproof alternative to liquid fertilizers, let me introduce you to the real miracle ingredient: worm castings. This is simply the polite term for worm manure. Unlike fresh animal manure, which is hot and will burn plants instantly, worm castings are cool. They have already been completely broken down by the digestive system of the earthworms. They are literally black gold for your garden. You can take a small handful of pure worm castings and gently scratch it into the top layer of your seedling soil. It is physically impossible to burn a plant with worm castings. They release nutrients incredibly slowly, exactly when the plant asks for them. Furthermore, worm castings are packed with millions of highly beneficial soil microbes. Instead of sterilizing your soil with turmeric or poisoning it with baking soda, you are actively adding the good guys back in. These microbes help protect against fungal diseases naturally. You can also soak a handful of worm castings in a bucket of water overnight to create a compost tea and use that pale brown water to bottom feed your plants. It is the ultimate natural health boost. But what if you are watching this video in a panic? What if you already watched a viral video yesterday and poured a huge spoonful of baking soda or yeast directly into your seedling pots? Do not panic, but you must act quickly. You have to flush the toxic salts out of the soil before the roots are completely destroyed. Take your plastic seedling pots to the sink. Make sure they have very good drainage holes at the bottom. Turn the cold water tap on to a very gentle trickle. You do not want cold water. Use lukewarm room temperature water. Let the water run gently over the soil, filling the pot and letting it drain out the bottom completely. Do this 3 or 4 times. You are literally washing the dirt. This process will wash away the excess sodium, the uneaten sugar, and the yeast. It will also wash away some good nutrients, but right now, survival is the only goal. After you have flushed the pots thoroughly, let them drain completely on a towel. Do not water them again until the soil feels quite dry. Give them bright light and air circulation. They might look shocked for a few days, but tomatoes are fighters. Given a clean environment, they often bounce back. Moving forward, if you really want to prevent the diseases that these hacks claim to cure, you need to change your daily habits. Prevention is always better than a cure. Fungal diseases like damping off and blight require moisture on the stems and leaves to reproduce. Therefore, your number one defense is a dry surface. Never water your seedlings from above. Do not use a watering can to rain down on the leaves. Always pour the water into a tray underneath the pots. Let the soil soak it up for 20 minutes, and then dump out any remaining water. The surface of the dirt should remain relatively dry. Second, install a small oscillating fan in your grow room. Have it blow a gentle breeze over the plants. This does 2 incredible things. It completely disrupts the humid microclimate that fungus needs to grow. And secondly, the physical movement of the breeze exercises the plant stems. Just like lifting weights builds muscle, resisting the wind builds thick, robust plant tissue. A tomato plant raised with a fan will have a stem twice as thick as one raised in perfectly still air. The final truth about gardening is that there are no shortcuts. Growing plants is a slow, methodical partnership with nature. Every time someone promises you a miracle in just 1 spoon, they are selling you an illusion. The real magic happens when you understand the basic biology of the plant. A tomato seedling wants to live. It is genetically programmed to grow huge and produce fruit. Your only job is to get out of its way and provide the basic building blocks: light, water, appropriate temperature, and a gentle organic source of food when the time is right. We have to stop treating our gardens like chemistry experiments. Throw away the baking soda, keep the yeast in the kitchen for baking bread, and save the turmeric for your cooking. By focusing on fundamental, proven horticultural practices, you will completely eliminate 90% of the problems you face indoors. Your plants will be darker green, the roots will be bright white and thick, and transplanting them out into the garden will be a massive success. Consistency will always defeat quick fixes. So, here is the incredible plot twist we have uncovered today. The absolute best thing you can add to your tomato seedlings right now might just be nothing at all. We have exposed the harsh reality that viral kitchen hacks like baking soda, yeast, and turmeric are not miracle cures. They are actually chemical wrecking balls that destroy soil potential hydrogen, starve plants of nitrogen, and sterilize the beneficial microbes your garden desperately needs. By chasing a magical one-spoon shortcut, millions of well-meaning gardeners are accidentally burning their plants' roots and causing the exact diseases they want to prevent. Remember, patience, proper lighting, bottom watering, and a tiny whisper of organic food are the real secrets to a massive summer harvest. Stop looking in your spice rack and start trusting the proven science of nature. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today. If this video saved your seedlings from a kitchen disaster, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a like. We have lots more myth-busting garden science coming your way. Now, I have a question for you to answer in the comments. What is the absolutely craziest, most ridiculous gardening advice you have ever been given by a friend or seen online? Let us discuss it down below.